hopefully this will work. All right, again, welcome to the webinar tonight, and we are talking about the keys to a long, healthy life with Dr. Steve. And I have his picture just in front of us. And there you go. That's Dr. Steve, and he's the director of Summey Wellness Center. He's a chiropractor, but he's also a lot of other things, most important of which he's a wonderful guy and a good teacher. So without much further ado, I am going to hand it over to Dr. Steve. And Dr. Steve, I know you're going to talk about yourself and tell everybody how great you are. And I think there's no better person to do that than you. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Thank you again for joining us, and Steve.
Well, thank you, Dr. David. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well. I'm sure everybody else can. If you can't, please let us know.
All right. I'm going to get my screen kind of minimized here if I can.
Okay. And folks, if you're new on the webinar, you can type in your questions in the chat box in the top right. And I will be there to answer your questions.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, David. Thank you so much for the introduction. And Sherry, I know, is doing other things. She has always been such a helpful person kind of behind the scenes, and as David learns the technology, and I'm still not very good at maneuvering my way through the technology, so I'm going to depend on Dr. David to pick out some questions. If we're getting maybe some background noise, then go ahead and feel free to interrupt me. Sometimes I tend to talk with my hands, and I know you can't see me, and that's okay because I want the attention to be on the information on the slides. So yeah, David and I've known David and Sherry for several years now. David and I met on a speakers bureau for another company that did continuing medical education seminars, and so I've owned my own wellness center for about 30 years. I was the first in Longmont to start a multidisciplinary rehabilitation facility. We had an orthopedic surgeon, neurosurgeon, internist, 4 physical therapists, 4 chiropractors, and that went along really well until managed care came out and kind of dismantled that, just kind of cutting and slicing and dicing. And so we've kind of reformed and reorganized, and so I've always been interested in wellness and helping people with lifestyle changes. As a chiropractor, my undergraduate work was in exercise physiology, biology, human performance. We did graded exercise testing on athletes that came up to altitude to train for the biathlon for the Olympics, and that was kind of my first start in human performance and physiology, and so I really enjoyed that, and I had several injuries in sports. I went to college on scholarship, and I had some pretty severe injuries. Could have been definitely career-ending and would have prevented my ability to have the scholarship in wrestling and football, and I had an experience with a chiropractor. And it was pretty severely pinched nerve in my neck, and I really couldn't move my head. I had to wear a collar, one of those football collars, because if I got my head hyper extended to one side, hyperflexed to one side, I'd feel that lightning-like sensation that you get when you hit your funny bone. It's not funny, and it's not a bone. It's actually an unprotected nerve, but I was getting a nerve up in my neck pinched, and it zinged down the arm. And so the chiropractor saw me about 3 times and cleared that out, and so I liked chiropractic. My best friend was a chiropractor. His father was a chiropractor that I went to see, and so he was watching me crank my neck around, and he was the one that I was trying to fix my own neck, and so he sent me to his father, and so that changed the course of my life. And then I had another injury while I was in undergraduate school on my lower back. I started having sciatic nerve problems. And my father had already had 3 back surgeries. He was a PE teacher here in Longmont. We're about 32 miles out of Denver. And I already saw his failed back surgical syndromes, 3 of them. None of them worked. And he was just miserable from that point on. And so I knew I didn't want to go that route. So I flew out to St. Louis, looked at Logan College, found that it was one of the top chiropractic colleges in the world, and applied and was accepted. I was either going to go to Baylor in physical medicine or Logan. Logan accepted me first. And so that path started quite a few years ago, and I've never regretted that. It's a very difficult course in study, and I was never really that good of a student, but once I found my passion, I was going from average of C+ maybe if it was physical education classes, and I got up to the dean's list, and that never happened to me before. But it's amazing what can happen when you understand what the brain just literally turns on genetics, and we might talk a little bit about that tonight. But and so emphasize the human performance element, and I've always liked sports performance, chiropractic, nutrition, things that help improve wellness. And I met a gentleman several years ago, Steve Daughter. He was a Assurant Life and Health agent for about 6 states, and he had personally brought about 19 million. He and his wife Nancy, and I don't think they're on the call tonight. I think they're traveling, but I think there's some of the members of the Colorado Society for Wellness and Prevention are listening, and so I want to welcome those individuals, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I met Steve Daughter, and I understood as a health insurance agent, he was very interested in wellness, and I thought that's interesting, and I just thought that insurance companies paid for sickness. And then I realized that no, they're the ones that are literally paying for our sickness. They're losing lots of money, and so I started understanding about managing care and understanding managing costs and this type of thing. And so Steve sold this company. He brought 19 million. He and his wife 19 million subscribers to this online wellness program, and then he sold that and to work with smaller companies. And now he's a kind of a silent partner in that business, and he started he was one of the founders of the Colorado Society for Wellness and Prevention. And I apologize for a couple of things. One is I talk very fast, and I don't have slides for everything that I'm talking about tonight. I want to kind of guide us through about 60 slides or so. I think there's 58, 59 slides, something like that. And it's going to be on 2 main topics, and there's just no way that we can address the whole of everything it takes for wellness and longevity. So we know that there's some key factors, and we're going to talk about some of those keys. Literally, it would be a subject for about 6 webinars to have this broken down into 6 different modules. And so anyway, so Steve Daughter and one of the lobbyists for the Colorado Society or Colorado Association of Health Underwriters, Cindy Slovine Miller, have now passed 2 wellness bills in the state of Colorado. This bill is being signed by Governor Ritter, or has been signed by a Colorado governor, and it makes Colorado kind of a unique state. Colorado, we know, is ahead of most of the states in terms of wellness and disease risk factors, but we're kind of catching up, and that's when you start looking at some of the states and how the obesity level is occurring, you'll see that Colorado is used to be in the green, and now it's starting to get into the yellow, and it hasn't quite joined some of the other states, but that's not a good trend. And so the Colorado Association of Health Underwriters, I've spoken with those groups a couple times on subjects that you're going to hear about tonight, and so we've developed a good relationship, and I decided that it is important for us to take the people of Colorado and help them, just like I do my patients, understand what wellness is about and certain key factors that they need to become responsible for. First of all, you need to kind of assess where you're at, and that's what we do when we come into companies, is assess their level of wellness, and then we need to take some action steps and then help people take responsibility for that. And so one of my first topics is going to be on the heart and this subject called heart math. And I know that those of you who have been with Building Strength webinars for several years, you've heard this talk maybe more than once, but I always think that review is really good, and I cut out a whole bunch of slides, so it's going to be a review. Then we're going to talk about the digital pulse wave analyzer, and it's going to be kind of going into performance in terms of the heart and the arteries. And Steve Daughter was one of the instructors in my certification program through the National Association of Health Underwriters, and that's a course that we're actually creating a little bit more refinement. We're creating a 3-tiered course, So for those of you who want the website, and if you know anyone that's dedicated to and very interested in Colorado wellness, I'm sorry that I know we're broadcasting this in several states and maybe in a few countries internationally. I know Canada may be one country that's listening in because my fiance may be on the call. So hi Leslie. And so anyway, the facts are that you know, the states need to all be aware of this, but Colorado, and all we can do is work within our states and within the state laws, and we have passed some unique bills, and I say we, the Colorado Association of Health Underwriters. I am not a health underwriter, but we're starting to work with more health underwriters because we're partnering with them, we're integrating with them, just like other healthcare providers, to create a stronger team, because workplace wellness and the workers, the employers, they are the ones that are paying for our sickness in this country. And if they're not involved in wellness, they're going to be sadly involved in paying for sickness. So they understand this process, and it's starting to move. The National Health Care Bill, the new Health Care Reform Bill, as many challenges as there are with that. One of the several good things. One is that we're actually being moved in this direction. We're being encouraged to be responsible for our health and wellness, and that way we'll spend less money. But we also need to motivate people from a financial standpoint, and that's why this wellness bill is significant. One of the things that I think is important on both a national and a state level, but the national level, they created a provision of anti-discrimination against chiropractors. And if you've never been to a chiropractor, don't know that much about chiropractic, we've been discriminated against about 115 years, and there's been violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act, and there's been monopolies created that are illegal. But that's another story. We're obviously interested in health and wellness. I think we're one of the original wellness professions. We're the largest natural healing profession in the world. 100% of us have to have nutrition as a mandatory requirement, whereas I think in medicine, I think 18% of medical schools offer nutrition as electives. So we're going to jump into this because I know I'm talking too much about one slide, and there's my fiance, and sure love the inspiration that she's given me, and you can see the heart there, and she was the one that actually introduced me to many things, but heart math. I'll always be grateful for this introduction, because it truly helps all of us stay connected, not only with everyone else's heart or with the people that we choose, but also with our own heart and our brain. So that we know that the heart, we used to think that it's just a pump. That's it. And it's an incredible pump, 100,000 times a day. Again, we used to think that its only purpose was a pump. Well, we know that it's really 4 systems. It's a 4-way communication system. Yeah, it is a pump, and it does about 48 million gallons in a lifetime. And when you think about it, in one day, it will pump enough, force enough equivalent energy to raise a ton of weight 3 feet off the ground. So it's a neurologic system. We know that the intrinsic system of the heart is connected to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, and so we won't go into that. But there's 40,000 neurons now that we now understand that is involved with the heart, and so there actually is a new specialty that's developed from understanding about the heart. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's biochemical hormonal organ. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. You know, you don't bond with brain to brain, do you? It's heart to heart, and so the heart is actually a sensory organ. We don't think about it that way, but it is. You know, we feel intuition, not in the brain, in the heart. We feel love and caring and appreciation in that central area. And so because of the 40,000 neurons, we know the heart has memory. We know the heart is an intelligent organ. And some of these things are just like, people may be thinking, I've never heard of this before. This is incredible. That's what I thought when I learned this about 4 years ago. And then here's the most powerful. It's the electromagnetic generator. It's actually the most powerful magnitude in terms of 60 times more powerful than the brain in terms of electrical field, and it's 5,000 times more powerful in terms of the magnetic field. Anytime you have electrical current running down a wire, you also have a magnetic current, and that's how electromagnet motors work. Anytime there's electricity, there's magnetic. Anytime there's a fluxing magnetic field, there's a current being produced. And we can detect this with a magnetometer several feet away. And the heart has an incredible capacity to affect not only us, but also those around us. And you can tell when you come in close proximity with somebody 6 to 8 feet away, you can tell. If you're looking at them, if you have, looking at their body language, oftentimes you have a feeling. And we sometimes say, oh, I kind of have a good feeling about this person. And sometimes we have, we're saying to ourselves, I think I need to get away from this person. I don't have a very good feeling about this. And we need to listen to these languages, voices. It's actually not a voice, it's actually a feeling. It's an emotional connection. This heart-brain synchronization is very powerful. We need to pay more attention to that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that heart-brain thing later. This is not a HeartMath webinar, even though my fiance and I are one-on-one certified practitioners in HeartMath. This is an educational program. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about how I implement this within my heart. Within my office. Yes, I do it within my heart as well. But HeartMath has developed some incredibly successful programs of self-improvement, both mental, emotional, physical, in terms of helping us balance. And really that's what we're trying to do. Chiropractic, in life, we're trying to have balance, isn't it? Well, or aren't we? Balance is a difficult thing. It's like juggling, 3 balls takes a long time. 4 balls, that's a really tough one. And so on. And I think a lot of us are trying to juggle like 5 or 6 different things at once, and we get stressed. And this is one way to kind of bring us back, center us. The heart, the French word for heart is core, and the core of the body is the center. And sometimes we need to recenter ourselves, and that's where things like yoga and meditation, prayer, that type of thing can really help that process. So. This is, again, not a replacement for medical advice or healthcare professionals. It's informational. We know that stress, now this is about all I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk a lot about stress. We all know that we all have it. Unless you're 6 feet under, unless you're dead, you have stress. It damages the body's systems. It creates cardiovascular disease. It actually increases bone density problems. It decreases bone density. It suppresses the immune system, creates blood pressure issues and anger, depression, things like this. And oftentimes we have difficulty sleeping when we have stress. So I left this one in here from my last presentation because it's a huge problem. Stress and sleep cycle disorders are a real major problem, and it creates problems with very talented healthcare professionals. And they tend to, especially financial stress, that's a huge one, and there's lots of healthcare providers leaving because of that type of stress. Well, what else does it affect? It affects our autonomic nervous system. It causes this feeling of just not being right. You sometimes can't put our finger on it, but you say, I just don't feel right. I'm not my usual self. Something's off. Athletes typically say, I don't know, I can't figure it out, my timing is off. We say having a bad day, you kick the bedpost, then you kick the cat, then you're mean to the kids, and your day starts out just rolling downhill. And sometimes you got to just say, wait a minute, let's stop, let's focus, let's breathe, let's focus on the things that we can appreciate. So the autonomic nervous system, we have the brain and spinal cord. We have the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. And then everything outside of that is called the autonomic nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is under voluntary control. Autonomic nervous system is under automatic control, and it actually regulates 90% of our body functions. So really, that helps to understand this. But the real question is, what happens to you and how you feel about these events. What does an event do? What's your interpretation of that event? And that's such a critical thing, and there's some new material out. And again, I apologize for not having slides on this. We'll get them in the future because this is such an important field that's just starting to develop. Bruce Lipton is a PhD, and He wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. So it's you've heard the saying, it's not what happens to you so much as what happens within you. It's your belief about what happens to you that's a key, and that actually can change your genetic expression. And that's a fairly new thing, and that's called epigenetics. And in Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, he goes into that in quite detail. In fact, I started doing a little bit of research, and it's quite involved, but I would definitely recommend Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. It'll change your whole concept about what we thought genetics were all about. He, by the way, Dr. Bruce Lipton is teaching at Chiropractic College in New Zealand. So we know that these emotions have a powerful effect and an impact on the body. In the psychology field, they call it somaticizing or psychosomatic illness. And, a few years ago I used to think, well, that's kind of ridiculous. We know that we try to separate everything, and we all know that we can't. It's mind, body, spirit. They're inseparable. Everything functions together, and we call this holistic thinking or holism or the wellness philosophy. And so, let's breathe. Check your posture also. If you find yourself kind of slumping down, that'll create slowing down of your autonomic nervous system, and you'll start going to sleep. I can't drop a book, or it'll scare people and maybe hurt their ears or their speaker on the computer. So sit up nice and straight. That'll also help your breathing as well. It'll relax the diaphragm, and you should be breathing from the gut, not the chest, but from the stomach. So take a few deep breaths. And enjoy that little picture. That was very similar to a spot that we went to in Indonesia. And so we know that these positive emotions, like appreciation, care, love, not only feel good, but they're also health promoting. They actually help our body become synchronized, and they help our body become coherent. Coherent is kind of a visual term, meaning clear, but there's other definitions of coherence that we might go into later. Rene Dubois says what happens in the mind of man is always reflected in the diseases of his body, and that's where that psychosomatic illness or wellness, we could also call it psychosomatic wellness too, because trying to or being effective at eliminating negative thought processes, sometimes negative people, just can't say get them out of your life, because sometimes they're our own family, and it's kind of tough to do that. But they're coworkers, bosses maybe, and that's tough. But you've got the choice of being able to surround yourself, especially in your time, with positive reading, positive people, and it's amazing what that'll do. Chief Medical Officer, unfortunately, has a bad name now. British Petroleum commented on. It's a big company, and it's a company that did use, or they have used heart math training. I wish they had used it a lot more down in the Gulf. Unfortunately, they were just too pressured on trying to do something that they've never done before, and it's creating, as we all know, a lot of problems. But just talking about blood pressure, there's a lot of people that are under stress in that company and in the other companies. And the chief medical officer said this level of blood pressure reduction, if repeated in a large clinical trial, would reduce the incidence of stroke by 60%. And so that's pretty big. And we see it all the time in our practice when we help reduce stress and tension. In fact, there's lots of there was just a new headline and article and research coming out with chiropractic care and reduction of blood pressure. And we have excellent results with that in our practice. And at the medical doctor's orders, people are getting off of blood pressure all the time, blood pressure and cholesterol drugs and this type of thing. And I tell people exactly these words: hey, it's not my intention to take you off any drugs. We stayed out of that area. We decided about 115 years ago that we didn't want anything to do with the pharmaceutical industry. But now there's about 6,000 drugs out there, and thank God I don't have to be tracking all of them. The pharmacists can't even do that. You have to have a computer to track them all. And but I say to them, I'm not interested in recommending that you get off of any drugs or obviously put you on any drugs. It's my interest to get enough good information in your brain and enough wellness in your body that you don't need those drugs. Isn't that what you and your doctor would want? And everyone, without exception, they shake their head yes. And then they start thinking about this, and they think, well, yeah, but you know what? In the last several years, he hasn't taken me off of any drugs. So it's kind of our responsibility to start finding out some of these alternatives or these integrative things. I don't necessarily like the word alternative because it kind of implies one or the other. So the Colorado Society for Wellness and Prevention, we're an integrative society, and we're integrating multiple practitioners. We're integrating multiple organizations. National Jewish is one of our supporting organizations, Rocky Mountain Health Plans, etc. We've got a lot of individuals. The gentleman that started 9 Health Fair, if those of you who are in Colorado, is the largest volunteer organization, 19,000 volunteers, and so they're the president of 9 Health Fair is actually a member of Colorado Society of Wellness and Prevention. And I meant to do this, talk about just our mission, and we are looking for people that want to become members and that we can help go into workplace wellness situations and be able to be maybe a wellness champion or help to train somebody there at work. But our mission statement of the Colorado Society for Wellness and Prevention is to improve our members' ability to successfully meet the health and wellness needs of all Coloradans at a grassroots level through understanding, networking, education, advocacy, professional development, and to improve the health and well-being of all Colorado citizens. And I believe that we're making some great strides, and when we see things, laws change, which they've already passed 2. There's already been 2 laws passed in the wellness area. We're going to see other states follow along, and that's really the only way we're going to create this kind of a groundswell and movement towards a better state of health and wellness. So I wanted to get that in there. And we also have national grocers. We call them Vitamin Cottage in our area that are founding board members, Centura Health, I mentioned 9 Health Fair, National Jewish, Colorado State Association of Health Underwriters. So, if Scott Uhalt is listening, president of our society, God bless him, and thank you for all your dedication and all the rest of the board members. We got a great group, and it really takes a team and a team effort to continue to move things forward. So, okay, back to the heart. We want to look at what is incoherent versus coherent heart rhythms. So we're going to look at this chart here. And I put people on this in 3 minutes. I put them on, I clip the little sensor to the ear. You know that the biomagnetic rhythms of the heart, the electromagnetic rhythms of the heart can be measured anywhere. Big toe, little toe, big finger, little, big index finger, big, thumb and ear, etc. You can measure these electromagnetic signals anywhere in the body. And so you can clip it onto the thumb if you want, but I like to clip it onto the ear so it leaves a person hands-free. And oftentimes when I put them on this, in about a minute and a half or so, they'll see what's on that left-hand side. And when they see that that doesn't look very good, and I'll ask them about, what's your day been like? Every once in a while I do see people, they're in a coherent state, and these are typically personalities that just nothing bothers them. And they're very easygoing and definitely not a type A personality. They're just easygoing, and they're fun-loving people that tends to just take life in stride. But a lot of people have these incoherent heart rhythms. It's because their autonomic nervous system is imbalanced. It typically is shifted over to the sympathetic side, and oftentimes they'll have higher heart rates than they should be, and their nervous system is just malfunctioning. Their heart and their brain are not synchronized. Okay, another time to breathe. Sit up, relax. That'll also help. Take a few deep breaths. Focus on your heart. Focus on your breathing. 5 seconds of breath in, 5 seconds of breath out. It's one of the ways that we can synchronize our nervous system. We all know that when you're stressed, you take a few deep breaths, right? It's kind of a inherent thing. Intuitively, we kind of know that. And so heart math actually takes the next step, and we integrate emotions in that process. So what does coherence do? It actually synchronizes all of our systems. And being coherent improves clarity. How many good decisions have you made when you're stressed? People say, I am so angry I can't even see. See? It affects, really, literally, not only our external vision. Stress constricts blood vessels, but it also restricts our internal vision as well. and we sometimes can't see, what's right before our eyes. We just start malfunctioning. Our energy is drained. Our creativity is gone. You start saying stupid things. Men, you know what I'm talking about. Men we sometimes don't have the sense of intuition. We typically want to use our brain. We want to fix things. And women know that, no, I just want you to listen. Listen to my heart. Listen to how I feel about that. And men are not used to doing that. And so then this will help that connection, the connectivity problem. And again, when you're relaxed, how many times have you just take some breaths, relax, or just sleep on it, and all of a sudden the solution comes to mind? And it happens when you're in that coherent state. Hippocrates said that natural forces within us are the true healers, and that's true. There's no pharmaceutical out there, and I'm not trying to talk about getting on or off of any drugs. That's between you and your doctor. But there's no drug that heals. None. It's our body. It's our mind, body, spirit. And Heart Math has been such a wonderful addition to the practice and to my life. And there's a force of nature right there. And so that's some of your de-stressing breaks. I'm not going to have them so much in the next one because we're going to focus on a little bit different thing. But research, we know that when you intentionally shift into this positive emotion of caring, appreciation, love, it literally is like flipping the switch. When I put people on there and they see themselves on that left-hand side and the lines are all jagged, I'll have them go through three steps to coherence. And really it doesn't take much longer than a minute or two to teach a person to do that. It can be done over the phone. We do a one-on-one coaching program. And we can get them into a facilitated state, and literally it's like, oh, wow. They see their lines coming nice and smooth and breathing and the rhythmic, coherent level straightening out. And then after about, maybe a minute or two, they feel it. It's not an instant thing necessarily. Dr. Childrey was one of the founders of the Institute of Heart Math, and he says the emotional process can work faster than the mind. Or since the emotional process can work faster than the mind, it takes a power stronger than the mind to bend perception, override emotional circuitry, and provide us with intuitive feeling instead. It takes the power of the heart. And that's so true. Emotions are very fast, and they access immediately right to the center of our brain. And sometimes you've heard that, quick to anger type of thing. And that's tough. That's hard. It's hard on the heart. It's hard on the adrenals. And that'll wear a person out as well as other people around them. And so here's some definitions of coherence. This comes from Science of the Heart. Clarity of thought, emotional balance, synchronization between multiple systems in our body. It's an ordering pattern within one system. So there's a couple types of coherence. There's just general physiologic coherence, and then there's the psychophysiologic coherence, and then we're talking about the emotions. And it does help individuals that tend to swing with a lot of emotions one way or the other, highs and lows and anger and depression, things like that. It helps to stabilize that process. And again, we're not trying to be their therapist or psychologist, but we're teaching them how to empower themselves to be able to take control, because we can, because our body. The psychophysiologic coherence, it's mind, body, spirit. It's mind, body, spirit. It's what it's all about. So that's where we're going to be on our honeymoon when we get married. We're still working out issues between nationalities, and so. But it's been a very interesting 4 years. I met Leslie August 11th, 4 years ago, and so. Okay. Oh, I didn't spend enough time on that last slide. Breathe, sit up, relax, take a couple of deep breaths. Imagine yourself there on the beach. Sorry, got to move on. So we know that this new specialty, it's called neurocardiology. Just checking my time. I'm doing good on time. Neurocardiology. This is Dr. Armour, MD, PhD. anatomical and functional principles. The heart is a sensory organ. It's this heart-brain connection. And there's a reference that I'm going to use by a neurocardiologist, and it has to do with inflammation. And so just kind of be listening for that. But our heart-brain can learn, can feel, can sense, and remember independent of the cranial brain. Our gut can do the same thing. You know, sometimes when you have that gut feeling, well, it's not only in the solar plexus area, which is a combination of thousands of nerve endings coming together that actually these plexus control the intestinal tract, the stomach, and so on. But these 40,000 neurons are also in this heart. And it's pretty fascinating when you see this whole process come together. So we know emotions drive our brain and our hormones into this coherent state or chaos. And it literally is a matter of choice. You know, how long during the course of the day and night do you want to bathe yourself in that physiology of, you know, when you remember seeing those pictures, oh, boy, yeah. I remember laying on that beach in that nice warm sun, and you know, you do that for a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and that's a healing, coherent, synchronized state. And then we have the other states where traffic and, you know, horns and sirens and sometimes family members and bosses and all this stuff that can create this chaotic thing. But we want to focus on and choose to surround ourselves with these emotions of caring, appreciation, love, and focus on that area around the heart. So we know the neuroendocrine system can then synchronize, and the other systems are synchronized by the emotions. Christiane Northrup, most people know Christiane Northrup. She says that nearly every disease or illness I've seen or treated in decades of medical practice could have been improved or even cured in my patients had I known or I know how to access the physical power of our heart's intelligence. I think there are some words missing in there. Even cured had my patient, or I known, okay, how to access the physical power of our heart's intelligence. Heart Math is the owner's manual we've been waiting for to help us recognize and use our heart's energy to help heal our bodies and our lives. Okay. I think I wanted to make sure I didn't miss a slide here. So the Institute of Heart Math Research Center, if you go to www.heartmath, one word, heartmath.org, and you can actually take some interesting free stress tests. You can look at some videos. And a person can actually do it, get the training, or actually understand it, just use it for personal use if they want to. We went through a 4-hour program called Voyage to Heart Intelligence. Leslie and I did, and we've never met our instructor. She was out in Illinois, and we did that program telephonically, and then we went to the Institute of Heart Math out in Boulder Creek or Boulder City, California, and beautiful area up in the heart of the redwoods, and we did our 3-day intensive there. And so Heart Math is committed to increasing the world's body of scientific knowledge, promoting heart-based living, and global coherence. The Global Coherence Project is pretty amazing, so when you go to heartmath.org, you'll see it there. The mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of a greater community of human beings. So this is one of the things that we do. We call it Stress Solutions. It's a one-on-one. We can do a one-hour program, or we can do that, like I mentioned, that 4 one-hour sessions. There are several different programs. Transforming Stress is one of them, and there's a number of other programs. You can look it up on that heartmath.org. So there's my website, summeyhealth.com, and then my phone number as well. It's 303-776-2939. One of the things that we do with both Stress Solutions, but also when we're doing worksite wellness programs, is we help companies reduce absenteeism, presenteeism. Now, we all know what being absent means. You're sick and you're not there. What about presenteeism? Presenteeism was a new term for me a few years ago. Steve Daughter kind of pointed it out to me. Thank you so much for these tidbits. Presenteeism is actually you're at work, but you're really not there. You know, it's kind of like the lights are on, but nobody's home. And we've all seen some coworkers, like you want to tell them, get the heck out of here. You're yourself or anybody else any good here, you need to go home and heal. Go home and rest. Go home and get well. Don't be making those of us that are here sick. We know that high employee turnover rates are a problem, and productivity is a problem. And when you help an individual assess where they're at in this whole kind of wellness continuum, and there's several different ways of doing that, but that's one of the things that we do, and there's several other companies that are doing the same thing. But when you assess the individual or the company's wellness quotient, so to speak, you figure out, well, here's where your problem is in the company or the individual. Let's say it's a weight issue. Let's point those out. Let's find out where the risks are, and let's start to take intervention, and then let's reassess. Let's reassess. You know, the statement is, you can't change what you don't measure. So we get in there, we measure, we intervene, we do some things, and sometimes they're not very expensive. Sometimes they're actually free. Walking, you know, wearing a clicker. How much does that cost? Not very much, a few bucks. And just guiding a person, do some lunch and learns, and guiding people through activity, exercise, and helping them with their weight challenges. And we know that exercise will also help with their blood pressure and so on. And so we help companies do all these things while putting a halt to the escalating healthcare costs. Because really it's about stopping the damage. It's about stopping the problems that are occurring, preventing them. That's why Colorado Society for Wellness and Prevention, we know that the old saying, you know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That was in my mother's day and age, and that's still so true. So preventing the problems is much less expensive than waiting and treating the problem. That's why the National Healthcare Reform Bill was created. You know, they didn't work for nothing to create this, literally a 1 foot of paper and thousands and thousands of pages, because we have no problems. They worked, the Congress worked on this because we got major problems in terms of sickness, and we need to really all be more aware of what's happening with our body. Okay, I think that may be the last one of this series, and I'm gonna really pick up speed here. I apologize, but we're getting down to the last 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. So take a breath. Make sure your ears are tuned up, because we're going to fly through this next portion here. So, all right. Oh, sorry, we had a few more slides here. Bill Thompson, executive editor of Natural Health magazine, said this change in heartbeat produces the chemical and electrical changes in the body. If it were a pill, it would be called the most important medical discovery of the century. Something it may be in any case. And we do know that psychophysiologic coherence, mind-body connection, is huge. It is huge. And in some of these books, like Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, when belief, and that means that it also is our emotions too, attitude could be another word for it, it will change our genetic expression. And when you change genetic expression, that changes everything. It actually goes into the genes that we've inherited maybe generations ago, and it actually helps them express themselves if they're healthy genes. If we have negative emotions, guess what? It's going to stimulate some of those disease-producing blood pressure genes and these type of things. So Dr. Childrey, in the book of The Science of the Heart, says this technology now helps thousands of individuals from many walks of life lead more productive, healthy, fulfilling lives by learning to live more with heart and mind in synchrony, operating from a constructive synergy of the intelligence of both mind and heart. Wow, that's a very heartfelt, intelligent, you can just statement. You can just, when you meet these people, you know that they're living from their core, from their heart, and they're literally walking their talk. Okay, I kind of faked you out on some of those pictures. I like these sunset pictures. It reminds me very much of the Gunnison Valley, where I went to undergraduate school. Now we're going to start moving. Dr. Harry Elward, now this is, obviously we're focusing on wellness. We're focusing on longevity and health. Number one cause of death is heart disease. We all know that. There's 500,000 people, actually more than that, about 600,000 people every year that are dying of heart disease, we know that 50% of men and 60% of women, their first symptom, if they have heart disease, their first symptom is death. So Dr. Harry is a good friend of mine. He's a naturopath. He's got his PhD in cardiology. He wrote Let's Stop the #1 Killer of Americans Today. It's one of the reasons why we're having, if you go to the website, if you're writing these some of these notes down, www.cardiobus.com, cardiobus.com. We're bringing this bus to Colorado. We're going to be doing screenings in Longmont, in Denver, and if you have enough interest in your area, you can bring the cardio bus. There's going to be a fleet of these things. My fiance and I want to create one of these, and because obviously we know that the heart is such an important organ. It's the #1 organ when it comes to life. You know, we know that both heart and brain, you know, we have this ongoing discussion, you know, which is more important, the heart or the brain? Well, you got to have both. It's like hardware, software. You know, it's kind of silly to talk about one before the other because you got to have both in order for your system to be operating properly. On the left-hand side, there is a computer, and there's the digital pulse wave analyzer. We've got 2 here. I've got 4 in Longmont running, 1 in Denver, 1 in Alberta, Canada, and 1 I'm down in Arizona with our team. And these are independent individuals, but we kind of function as a team. And so you're going to hear about the digital pulse wave analysis. It's a 1-minute test. So let's go back here. We all know, we all have personal experiences. Every one of us in our family, no exception, has somebody that's had a brush with either heart disease, stroke, cholesterol problems, blood pressure issues, and it is unnecessary, totally. It's all about understanding. It's all about wellness and prevention, and lifestyle is such a critical factor. So in 1 minute, we can understand at the very bottom of this chart here, it's kind of a depiction, a cross-section of your arteries. Over on the lower left-hand side, there's an artery that's wide open, and that shows an artery that's young. And so literally what we're doing within 1 minute is we're getting an arterial aging. This is called the accelerated plethysmograph. Now this actually precedes blood pressure. This device came out before the blood pressure cuff. And when you're measuring blood pressure, what are you actually measuring? You're measuring elasticity of the arteries. Because if you have high blood pressure, I start asking questions, and nobody gets educated from their medical doctor about this. What's caused your blood pressure to be high? I get a blank stare. It's not the lack of blood pressure medication, that's for sure. We know that that can help, but it's just a symptomatic, temporary, and it can obviously save a life. I tell people, hey, listen, I'd rather have you suffer the side effects of the blood pressure medication, which there are side effects. I'd rather have you suffer those than the side effects of a stroke or heart attack, because that may be fatal. So let's get that blood pressure under control if you have hypertension. Better yet, let's prevent it. But if you have it, let's work with it. Let's help your body clear it out. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the wave analysis, the pulse wave analysis, digital pulse wave analysis, DPA, Meridian Medical is the company. If you want to go to that website, www.meridian, M-E-R-I-D-I-A-N, meridianmedical.ca. It's a Vancouver company, and just look for, you got to kind of search it out, DPA. They have a number of different devices there, but the digital pulse wave analysis, it's a wonderful device. It's being endorsed by cardiologists. It's a very simple, inexpensive way to measure arterial compliance or flexibility of the arteries and literally get an arterial age. I see some people that are 30 years of age, but they test out like they're 80 because their arteries are stiffer, their lifestyle is not good, their diet is not good, etc. So when you look at the picture of the arteries down below, you'll see that the arteries are getting stiffer, plugging up, cholesterol. What that actually is inflammation. There's a neurocardiologist, here's where I mentioned the gentleman. There's a neurocardiologist, his name is Richard Fleming, and he wrote the book called Stop Inflammation Now. Great book. And isn't that so true? Inflammation is at the basis of just about every disease. I really can't name a disease that doesn't have inflammation at its core when you understand the physiology or the pathology of these disease processes. So Yeah, Barry Sears, I know, has been on Dr. David's Building Strength webinar. Barry Sears, one of his last books anyway, one of his latest books is called The Anti-Inflammation Zone. And you know Dr. Harry's book, Let's Stop the #1 Killer of Americans. You know, it goes all the way from these brilliant individuals that are writing these books all the way down to the book is called, it's really a book out there called The Complete Idiot's Guide to the Anti-Inflammation Diet. So, you know, you got the point. Let's stop the source, let's stop the cause. And when I start questioning about why is their blood pressure high, they have no clue. And I look at them and I say, it's what you're doing. Or, maybe more importantly, what you're not doing. And that includes probably both what you're putting in your mouth or not putting in your mouth and what you're not doing with your feet, like moving them. And oftentimes 60%, as we know, of the population has a weight issue. We all know that most of the studies out there show that bringing that weight down at least 10% and maybe even bringing it down under what's considered normal for that person's height and weight will increase longevity. There's study after study after study that shows that if we're a little bit underweight, that's actually going to be conducive to longevity than if we're any overweight, and especially 60% of the population. I think 30% now is obese. More than 30% of their body is fat, and a lot of it is in those arteries. So it's a great 1-minute test that can give us a really good picture of what's happening. And literally, this is what happens to that one cell thick layer that lines all the arteries. As we go from A to B to C to D, stuff starts happening. Inflammation actually causes things to stick to the one cell thick layer that lines all the arteries. It's called the endothelium. And the endothelium is what we need to have healthy, because that's used to call the intima, because it was intimately connected to the blood. It was the layer right next to the blood. There's 3 layers in the arteries. There's only 2 layers in the veins. So my question is, do you know what age of your arteries are? What is your grade? Dr. Harry is certifying people around the United States. Meridian Medical can also give you the names of people that are certified in digital pulse wave analysis if they're in your area. Get the test done, even if you have to pay $30 to $50. In Longmont, Monday, $0. It costs nothing. And we're going to have the cardio bus here, cardiobus.com. And I think we're going to have a lot of people in our parking lot. We've got 3 test stations there. We've got 2 more in my office. And so people need to know, what's the assessment? You know, unfortunately, like I mentioned, 50% of men and 60% of women, they don't feel anything until death. So we need to be aware of what's going on with our arteries. So here's Dr. Ignaro. Now, Ignaro won, and his 2 other collaborators won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for understanding how the body uses nitric oxide. It actually helps relax and open up the blood vessels, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And they said back then, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, a finding that could pay off in treatments for heart disease. Well, that they were talking more from a pharmaceutical standpoint. And yes, there are pharmaceuticals out there that help the body with this nitric oxide system. This is in the Nobel E-Museum. It shows that even without having a chance to clear those arteries, you get plaque in there, now it's dangerous. You can open those things up immediately. I've had individuals, in fact one individual, I'll tell you his name, not his last name, Charles, had angina. The angina was coming back pretty severe. I was up in Canada. We were testing up in Alberta and in Calgary, and his wife said his angina is coming back and it's getting bad, and he did not like the nitroglycerin. See, that works on the nitric oxide pathway also. He didn't like the symptoms of that because it causes migraine headaches and it just dilates everything. But it'll save your life. And I said, take that stuff. And she said, yeah, but he didn't like the severe headaches. And I said, well, then get him on this particular product. It's 5 grams of arginine. Nitric oxide, or what they call arginine-derived nitric oxide, is totally natural. It's non-toxic. It's not like any pharmaceutical. It's an amino acid. And it basically will just open him right up. And immediately his angina went away. Immediately. And I see that happen all the time. I see blood pressures coming under control because, and you'll see in just a little bit, this nitric oxide literally makes those arteries like Teflon. Nothing sticks to them when they're like Teflon. Unfortunately, when you have inflammation, it's like Velcro. everything sticks to it, and that's dangerous, both in the lungs, in the arteries, anywhere in the body. So Dr. Cook is a medical doctor. He's a cardiologist, PhD in cardiology. His studies show that we can literally melt the plaque off the arteries by using arginine. And again, arginine is a simple amino acid. They call it a semi-essential amino acid. And it's very simple to get it in liquid form. Pills, you might see later on in a slide, they don't absorb very well. There's actually over 90,000 published studies to date, and you can see some of these. These are not slouchy studies. In the American Journal of Cardiology, Journal of Circulation, British Journal of Urology, Diabetes Care, Lancet, very prestigious medical journal, Journal of Physiological Pharmacology, Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, Medical Science and Sports and Exercise. Athletes love it. I love it from a performance standpoint. So it is a huge solution, and it's. I was shocked a few years ago when Dr. Harry was educating me about arginine, how many actual medical. If you go to Medline, you can go to Google. You're going to get several million hits, and then everybody and their brother are going to try and sell you their arginine product. Go to Medline. You won't get anything. Nobody's going to try and sell you on Medline. And you'll find and type in arginine and cardiovascular disease, or arginine and inflammation, or arginine and strokes, or you'll be shocked. Pills don't absorb very well. I send a lot of people down to Natural Grocers or Vitamin Cottage, but I don't send them for this because it's not absorbed. They don't carry liquids. I don't know why. I think it's just tough to produce. Dr. Ignaro's book is kind of a play on words. No More Heart Disease. NO stands for nitric oxide. How nitric oxide can prevent and even reverse heart disease and strokes. And you saw Dr. Cook's book, Cardiovascular Cure. You don't see too many cardiologists talking about cure, do you? There's a Dr. Graveline. We don't have that book at reference, but Dr. Graveline wrote the book, The Misguided Cholesterol Controversy. And he's a flight surgeon for NASA, and his doctor put him on Lipitor. Oh, just a little bit of Lipitor. About killed him. And he researched it, and he wrote a book. He said, we don't need to be on this stuff. And again, I'm not trying to give you medical advice. I'm just saying what he's saying. If a person wants to get off of a drug, you need to talk with your doctor about that. If that's your intention, you need to talk with your doctor about that. Arginine, simple, easy, non-toxic, 98% absorbed. A lot of people, they'll do both at the same time, but you better monitor your blood pressures because it will come down. And then you need to get advice from your doctor. And I always recommend you go with your doctor's advice on taking or getting off of medications. But many people can just eliminate them because they no longer need it. 85-year-old woman that her blood pressure was 165 over 115. We put her on 1 ounce a day. Actually, we put her on 2 ounces a day. We wanted to get her on 10 grams of arginine. She came back in 4 weeks, and she said, oh my gosh, my blood pressure is 130 over, I think it was like 95. And I said, you better talk to your doctor about cutting down your medications. And she did. She said, oh yeah, I already did. He's cut them in half. And she came back another 4 weeks later. Her blood pressure was 116 over 60. And I said, you better talk to your doctor about going off your blood pressure medication. She said, I already did. I'm off. And so she's thrilled about that, and we see this happen all the time. So you can see what your symptoms are, risk factors for cardiovascular disease and common symptoms. And yes, it will act like a liquid Viagra. When men take that, they're like, oh my gosh. They know that it works, especially if they have a circulation problem in their reproductive organs. So I didn't take some of the older name out of here. Cardio Health is actually the new name of the product that we're using. You can take with anything except nitroglycerin because it works on the same nitric oxide pathway. There are side effects, though. I got to warn you. Arginine has side effects: increased energy, improved memory, increased immune system function. Look it up on Medline. Improved sleep, improved muscle tone. It helps stimulate growth hormone. Now, adults don't need to grow, but it helps us with wound healing. It helps decrease pain. I've had several severe injuries, and I'm only on I think about 2 companies now, products. So it's helped me This particular one has a multivitamin, vitamin D, resveratrol. It's a great multivitamin. It really has helped me save money on supplements because I was just, okay, I got to add that one. Oh, there's another one. I got to add that one. And I got real tired of taking, 15, 20, 30 pills a day, and the expense was amazing. So in this economic times, we kind of need to look for alternatives there as well. So we talked about literally like a liquid Viagra. A lot of men will not admit this, but when you bring that up, you can kind of see them perking up there. I knew I would get in trouble saying that. Sorry about that bad pun. So use of arginine in diabetes. Dr. Prendergast is one of the top endocrinologists in the country, and he is very strong on using diabetes to help with blood sugar. So let's move on to the next one. I just got through in opening up my my panel there. There we go. African Americans, Black Americans are 5 times more likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease. A little bit beyond time, but we're getting down towards the end. We're almost at the finish line here. The problem with black individuals, dark-skinned individuals, is they don't produce enough of this L-arginine to complete this process of nitric oxide production. So, and that's a major problem. That's why they have 5 times more cardiovascular disease, because this critical enzyme that's needed for production of nitric oxide, when it's not produced, we're in trouble. And so Ignaro simply wanted to get this information out to the public. When he wrote this book, he wanted to be able to get it out there to help people reduce their challenges within the cardiovascular system and start getting that nitric oxide production going right away, rather than waiting for these drugs that are going to be expensive. They're going to have side effects to them. We can do it now. So the saying is, carpe diem, seize the day. Get that test done if you can. Oh, by the way, thank you, Dr. Harry, for allowing me to use this presentation. This is a lot of Dr. Harry's work, and so we've got a couple options. We can do nothing. That is actually doing something, but you might not like doing nothing, because, yeah, the call to 911 is free. Now, this is what happened to my dad. First symptom, he hit the ground, and that was the last thing he did. No symptoms before that. Ambulance trip was pretty expensive. The specialist, all the EKGs. Now, he was under full arrest at that time. They couldn't revive him, and they didn't have all this other stuff to go through. And so he went immediately right down to the very last funeral arrangements. But you'll see all the hospital stay, the intensive care, the recovery room, the anesthetic. Open heart surgery is no less than $50,000 right now. And this is the challenge, and this is the thing that I'm really wanting to kind of, I guess, I don't want to say fight against. I want to help people with their understanding that they do have choices. Number one is become aware of what's going on. We know that your lifestyle oftentimes is our biggest challenge. And so, but become aware. Assess your cardiovascular compliance in this EPA test. If you even have to pay $50 for it, it's well worth it. And so once you find out about it, and if you have some issues, if your arteries aren't as flexible, or if your age is a little bit higher than what your real age is, wellness and prevention is worth it. It doesn't cost very much to go on 1 or even 2 grams of arginine, 1 month of arginine. Actually, that is 2 ounces. That's 10 grams. So that's pretty aggressive when it's up into that 85, 90 range, because the gentleman Steve Smith of the Good Life company down in Dade, Florida, has really done a great job and produced these nutraceuticals for about 15 years, and he's brought that cost down to, our cost is basically $39 a bottle, and there's some shipping and tax. So I ordered a whole bunch, because I know we're going to need a lot when we do this cardio bus testing when they come out to Colorado. So yeah, I prefer option number 2. Again, everybody in their family has seen people that they didn't do anything, they weren't aware, didn't know, and that can hurt them. So get your family members, get your people that if they don't know, the old saying, what you don't know can hurt you. So find out what's going on. Hey, I would rather spend $50 on a test that tested and I showed really good arteries, flexible arteries, clean, wide open arteries, than say, oh, no, I'll just wait. I'm actually feeling pretty good. Yeah, well, that's what 60% of women who die and 50% of men who die, they say that same thing the day before the last thing they did on Earth. So, it is a choice. Let's not leave it up to chance. Let's create our own future and become well and just enjoy life. And so I think, David, we are done. If you're around, or I think I'm a little bit about 8 minutes behind, but I know that we allow time for question and answers, and so I haven't even had a chance to look and see if there's any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Steve.
You're welcome.
As always. All right. Folks, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type in the chat box, the top right. And please remember that these webinars are recorded and archived, and very soon, I'm probably saying too much now, but very soon we're going to make all our past webinars available to view online. We're not going to let you download them this time. We're going to let you view them online, and we're talking about 150 so far that we've accumulated of great webinars like the one Dr. Steve has done tonight. And you'll be able to, as a member, you can have access to all of them for the rock bottom dirt cheap amount that members are paying. So it's a pretty good deal. All right, so type in your questions, and yes, Dr. Steve, your fiance, the wonderful Leslie, is on. She's listening.
Oh, okay, good. Now
you feel better, huh?
That's right. My heart could feel that.
Oh, good. All right. Someone says, can you give us the brand name of the arginine that you use? Where do you buy it? I'm going to say this real quick, the person who's asking. Dr. Steve and Dr. Harry actually have done a couple of webinars for us, like you mentioned. Where I think you guys started probably early last year, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or a while before that. I'm not sure. But anyway, so the information that they have been given is just great. And yes, there is a company, he mentioned it, The Good Life. And I had a lady in Australia who she's in her 80s, and she didn't know how to get it because Good Life doesn't ship the product over there. And so she asked if I could help out. So what I did was she sent me the money, I bought it for her, shipped it over to her, and she's been using it now for 6 months to 8 months now. I think she's a missionary, so she goes to India and she takes her supplements with her. She used to have a lot of very high blood pressure and other problems. So, these things happen with older people anyway. And she finally sent me an email to just say thank you so much. And it was like, she said in 40 years her blood pressure has never been normal. And she says her blood pressure is normal. Her doctor, they've checked all the vital, the signs and the symptoms and the blood tests and everything, she said, is normal, and she is in her 80s, and so is her husband. So that's amazing. It's amazing that this can work so well. So this is good stuff. So if you need, I guess Dr. Steve would be the person to answer to help set you up.
Yeah, or actually, David, if you don't mind, if this is the first place you heard about it, if you heard about this webinar from someone, and if they are involved with or using Good Life products, then go back to them that you can get a good price and all that through them. But if you are just part of this webinar series and you heard it from Dr. David, go to buildingstrength.4tgl.com and just become a customer, and it's so simple. You can look at the Cardio Health. There's a Cardio Boost that's also 5 grams. If you're taking a multivitamin, then you may not need the full vitamins and minerals and all the other things in the Cardio Health. And the Cardio Boost is about $10 less. And so I think it's about $31, $32, and then you've got some shipping and tax depending on where you live and what your taxes are. So, but the first thing I would suggest is either get a hold of meridianmedical.ca, Dr. Harry, and it's DRHARRY at Comcast.net. Dr. Harry's email, Dr. Harry at Comcast.net, and he can tell you if there's any DPA technicians in that area. Meridian Medical can, or Dr. Harry can. I'm also doing certifications for DPA. I just started doing that, just got authorized by Meridian Medical to start doing that for chiropractors that are in Colorado, and pretty soon we're going to be up certifying chiropractors up in Alberta area. So,
oh, great.
But yeah, go to that building strength dot the number 4 the letters TGL.com, and you can look at all the different products. There's a whole bunch of really good products. If a person's got liver issues and they have the need for detoxifying, they've got may not even know they have liver issues. They just may be on medications. Let's say a cholesterol drug. That's gonna this product called Hair of the Dog is a great one. It's a liver detoxifier. It's actually created by an oncologist to help rapidly detox the liver. And it's kind of a weird name, but we're kind of stuck with that name for now anyway. But the that particular product is it's a little drink. It's like a 4-ounce drink. Tastes good. It's healthy for you, and you can also select these in sweetened with fructose, non-sweetened. I'm going to tell you right now that non-sweetened is rough, and I just put in some of my own stevia or put it in with a little bit of juice, and it tastes just fine. I just use maybe 4 ounces of chilled water or put some ice in there, and it's okay. But some people, if they have a really tough, hard to get past tongue, arginine is a tough product to cover the taste of it, and so they may want to choose the sweet form. Now there isn't a sugar-free form. I don't particularly like but for diabetic, they don't want to mess with raising their blood sugars. They'll choose that sugar-free. So, any other questions out there, Dr. David?
Yes, quite a few good ones. Is there anyone who should not take arginine?
Yes. Next question? No, I'm just kidding. The people that shouldn't be on it would be taking Viagra, Cialis, or Nitro. It's the only 3 I can think of. Anything that's going to improve a lot of these sexual performing drugs, they also work on the same pathway as nitric oxide. So you wouldn't want to be taking those. But everything else, yeah, it's not a problem. Now, there's some individuals that if they're on blood thinners and that type of thing, I always say go easy. If a person's got a sensitive constitution, go easy with it. Maybe start out with half an ounce. Put it in 4 ounces of water, and then just drink half of it now. And typically you take it an empty stomach because it absorbs better. It will bind with other amino acids. So that's why you don't take it with food. And usually I do it first thing in the morning. And then I go out and do my run, walk. It's a great way of getting that circulation going. And some people initially may have a little bit of a gut reaction to it if they take 1 full ounce. So in that case, we just say back off on it. But yeah, if they're on other medications and if they happen to be pretty sensitive to things, then we always say start out a little bit slower, maybe 1 teaspoon. 1 ounce is basically 2 tablespoons. And so maybe do like 1 tablespoon to start with and kind of go easy with it.
Okay. I know that Dr. Owings mentioned something about some viral infections, like the major herpes or something that could be a problem. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, most of us have the type 1 and type 2 herpes virus. Most of us have been exposed to this. If a person happens to have an active case of cold sore virus, chicken pox type of varicella zoster related virus, or rarely, shingles, I probably would go very easy on it. Usually in those cases you would ramp up lysine, and lysine and arginine will compete against each other. So you're going to inhibit the other one, and so you're going to waste your money on the arginine form. So you might temporarily discontinue the arginine, and that's what most of besides the acyclovir, the medication, which in my experience doesn't do much. I tell you what, in our office, If you have access to somebody that's doing cold laser, we call it cold laser. It's not cold, it's just plain laser. It's not medical laser. Everybody knows Lance Armstrong, but a lot of people don't know that Jeff Spencer, his chiropractor, used laser therapy on him and the rest of the postal team every day of the tour they won. And he wrote a book called 8 Tour de France Wins is No Accident. And the laser does a great job of also stopping viral infections as well. I know that's off topic, but they're really like, oh, I've got this shingles virus. It's killing me. It's so painful. Or the cold sore virus, sometimes they'll just break out and look terrible. You get that laser on there, that'll just stop it right in its tracks. And, of course, then when you have those type of viruses, you go on lysine and you would discontinue the arginine for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then you can just go right back on it.
Okay. All right. So I didn't know there were 8. Okay. Can you, okay, if I give the arginine product to my mother and she forgot and took nitroglycerin as well, what would happen?
And what was and took what as well?
Nitroglycerin. Glycerin?
Oh.
Is it glycerin?
Yeah, the nitroglycerin is a vasodilator. It's probably not going to hurt anything, but she might have a screaming headache. Nitro will do that anyway, and so that's why they say no, just don't do both. Just don't do both. Obviously, I don't know if a person said right afterwards, if they said, oh darn, I took them both. If you happen to have some lysine around, you might do that because it will bind with arginine. It will kind of counteract the arginine if you happen to inadvertently take both at the same time.
Okay. Could a regular person take the hard math training, or must you be a degreed health professional?
No, anybody that has an interest in improving themselves, for one thing, and it's not a requirement to have a medical background by any means. Obviously, if a person to get certified as a one-on-one practitioner, if a person, or one-on-one provider, I should say, if a person just has a big heart and they love being able to help people with all kinds of issues. I mean, it has so many applications. Coaches can use it for athletes because it'll help athletes be in the zone, stay in the zone. We all know what that word, the zone, means. Different than Barry Sears' blood sugar zone and the anti-inflammation zone. This is the coherence zone, and it's not about relaxation. It's about staying connected. Heart-brain communication is critical when it comes to athletic performance, and every athlete knows being in the zone. It's like an altered state. You know, time seems to go away. You seem to do things effortlessly. And when you're practicing, if you're practicing a musical instrument or practicing with a group, orchestra, or whatever, or artwork, when you're in the zone, time just seems to like stand still. That's being in the zone. And what these instruments will do is help a person know that they're in the zone, because sometimes people, this is an example, I fell asleep while I was on the machine. And I woke up, and you'd think that when you're sleeping you'd be in a really good coherent state. No, I like fell off the chart, and I was in a low coherence zone, because a lot of times when our brain kind of goes back to the devices that we've been trained to solve problems, focus on this challenge, or you maybe imagine an argument, or you got this stressful thing that's going on in your lifetime. You tend to focus on that, and that's what my brain was like. Okay, you know what? That's not a good state to allow my brain. So part of it's habit, and so you can just use it, get the training, just for your own peace of mind, so to speak. And then if a person wanted to go ahead and do the full certification out at the Institute of Heart Math, that's that 3-day intensive.
Okay, great. Do you know that why the Medline? I guess she's referring to Medline article. She says the Medline says one possible side effect of arginine is that it can elevate blood glucose. Is this in all people or just diabetics?
That's a good question. And on the company that we worked with, David and I worked with, at the very beginning, sometimes what happens is these people have a hard time glycosylating. They have a hard time attaching sugars to proteins. And so they've got a lot of these free sugars floating around. And when your body is processing that, sometimes that stuff will start flushing out, and temporarily you can have a slight increase. And they just kind of warn people, depending on how, if a person is very, sensitive to changes in diet and that type of thing, they just kind of warn a person, go slowly and ramp it up. Sometimes you can have some temporary increases, but oftentimes and we all know that proteins are low glycemic. In fact, proteins will actually help bring carbohydrates down into a lower category because they help with blood sugar processing and this glycosylation process. So, but that's pretty rare. I don't think I've ever seen a diabetic have issues, and I think Dr. Prendergast, Dr. Harry might have other things to say about that along the same lines. It's a pretty rare occurrence. I would have to look at them and say, well, what else did you do besides increasing your arginine? In that case, I would say either be on the sugar-free arginine or the non-sweetened arginine formula. But I would also want to ask, what else did you do if you noticed this increased blood sugar? And usually you can figure out that, oh, well, I didn't exercise that day, or yeah, I had some too much of this particular carbohydrate or whatever, and so it's usually not the arginine. So I think that's pretty limited in terms of reactivity in blood sugar.
Okay. Let's see now. If you need arginine now, will you always need arginine?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the answer is yes. We all need it now, and we always will need it. We get about 3 grams in our diet. Again, it's a semi-essential amino acid. Our body can synthesize it, but like a number of these other molecules, we don't get very much of it in our typical diet. And the things that have arginine are meat, eggs, milk, nuts, and things that are typically high in fat too. So you don't want to be pushing those foods real high. So I for certain what I would consider critical nutrients, I'm going to supplement, and I'm going to be able to then not get the fats and the problems that come along with having higher meat content. Like 5 grams, you'd have to eat like 3 pounds of a steak or something like that to have that, and nobody's going to do that. So, but again, Dr. Ignarro, the Nobel Prize winner, and the research shows that the average person gets somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 grams if they're found by objective testing to have some challenges, stiffness in the arteries, advanced either aging or clogging up of the arteries with cholesterol, circulation constricted because of inflammation, things like this. Dr. Ignarro found that you need at least 5 grams of arginine to be therapeutic. So that's why oftentimes we say, hey, if a person tests good, if they're like 25, I tested a guy who was like 35 years old. He was one of the best tests that I've ever done in this last couple of years. And he tested about 10 years younger than his age. But I said, I know you want to keep yourself doing this well, don't you? He said, absolutely. That's why I take supplements. I said, this would be a good one, just maybe 1 ounce a day or maybe even a half an ounce a day, getting 2.5 grams or maybe 5 grams. You're going to like it from a performance standpoint. It helps open up the circulation, helps endurance, helps improve strength, all those things that we know it does. And so it's not like you have to take it only for medical purposes. That's one of the things. And we're really, like you mentioned on your disclaimer, we are not treating any type of disease. We're actually simply providing the body with the building blocks that it needs to correct some of these issues that are going on.
Great. All right. Are these, I think they went to the Good Life website. Are any of these products good for someone interested in a detoxing program?
Yeah, the hair of the dog is a good one. I know that there's another one that's just about ready to be released. It's an aloe vera. It's a liquid, kind of a multi-vitamin mineral also. That would be an excellent one. I'm trying to think of the name of the one right now. You'll see it if you just go back to the website. If you go to Dr. David's site, if that's who referred you as Building Strength, just go to Building Strength dot the number 4, the letters tgl.com, and then kind of look at products, and you'll see that new. It'll probably be out within the next month or two. And so, but yeah, the hair of the dog is probably one of the best ones from a detox point of view on this particular company's products.
Okay. Are there any vitamins or minerals that would conflict with the arginine? How long do you have to wait before taking, if so?
About a half an hour. If you've eaten, then you got to wait about an hour and a half. So I always say first thing in the morning or last thing before you go to bed, and oftentimes I'll do both because I don't need it from arterial compliance, because my arteries are doing pretty good. I'm 56 years old and I have arteries. I just knocked off another year, so I was 35. No, it was 36 arteries of a 36-year-old. The compliance of a 36, and I knocked off a year this last year, just kind of slowly chipping away, so to speak. We all have this junk that builds up in our arteries. We all have free radical damage that occurs, and so. But yeah, an hour and a half after you've eaten something, about a half an hour before you've eaten something is a good timing for that. And yeah, we mentioned lysine, as you don't want to be taking those two together, arginine and lysine, because they'll compete.
Wow, yeah, I'm older than you are now. If you're just 36.
I got to really work hard at. We'll have to play racquetball one of these days.
Now you're coming into my territory.
Yeah, I'm asking for it now, aren't I?
Now you're asking for it. All right. Someone says, how do you get the heart vessel test? I guess she needs to contact Dr. Harry or who?
Or Meridian Medical. Yeah, so Dr. Harry at Comcast.net.
Okay.
Or Meridian Medical, there'll be phone numbers there. MeridianMedical.ca. It's because it's in Canada, and they're in Vancouver. So they certify individuals around the U.S., and so does Dr. Harry. And then again, I just started in Colorado here, so.
Okay. Well, great. Well, this has been great. I think all the questions have been answered, and
all right.
Lots of good information again. Dr. Steve, thank you. And there's a big thank you from one of our presenters. Someone says, really good. Again.
Oh, appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Well, there's no surprise there. Okay. Dr. Steve, thank you so much and by the way, folks, Dr. Steve has been responsible for quite a few of our really good presenters, like Dr. Owens, Dr. Prendergast, Dr. Harry. And these are all people who have done a great job in our presentations. And Dr. Steve has always been there to help us give us suggestions and advice. So, again, Dr. Steve, thank you.
Well, you bet. Thank you guys for having this platform. I know that a lot of people out there feel the same way I do. It's a great resource, and I just encourage everyone to get it out to your list because, knowledge is power, and literally these webinars that Dr. David's, unfortunately, I have not been able to make it on all of them myself, but it's just a tremendous resource. It's a good thing that they are recorded because we can get back in there and in our own time and replay them. So thank you very much, you and Sherry, for being there for all of us.
Well, thank you. And you're a member, so you're a member, so you don't have to worry about being on all the time. So great.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, good night, everyone. Have a great week.
Yeah. God bless. Take care.
God bless.